Hello! We have 3 stories today, but our first is a hilarious tale of one man's battle against an immovable and slightly ornery foe blocking his road day in and day out. Frustrated with their presence and unable to move them, our hero decides to take matters into his own hands and unleash the power of nature. That's right, he turns to a natural remedy that would make anyone regret ever coming to his neighborhood. How did he do it, you ask? Well, let's just say he took bird bombing to a whole new level. You won't want to miss this feather-filled frenzy, so stick around and watch the epic showdown between man and machine. Story 1. I live on a quiet street on the very outer reaches of suburbia. Now, the houses here are all built or rebuilt early to mid-2000s, so now is more or less the time where some age-related renovations and whatnot are taking place. So there are more work trucks parked around the last couple of years than in the years before. For the most part, everyone gets on with their neighbors. Now, the neighbor opposite decided it was time for his house to get a redo, which it does need. It was starting to look a bit rough around the edges. He'd bought it to rent out, and 15 years of tenants will leave its scars. So he hires a company to do it, which is a pretty normal thing to do when you own a rental house because they make sure building codes are adhered to. And normally, this would not even be a story, except the contractor hired the laziest folk imaginable. A 25-yard walk is unacceptable, even when it's in the 60s Fahrenheit, approximately 18 degrees Celsius. So they park next to and opposite the house, which means they park right in front of my house and opposite my house. That makes getting in and out of my house impossible unless you're on a bike or a very small car because you can't make the turn. Requests to park elsewhere are listened to and professionally ignored. This affects others too, as sometimes they leave such a narrow space to drive past that some people don't want to risk it. For context, they are parking proper man-sized pickup trucks, F-350, etc. So not exactly small vehicles, but not huge semis either. The owner of the house actually is understanding and has told them to park elsewhere, but he lives a good 60 to 70 miles away and can't be here every day to keep them in line. Each complaint sees them park in better locations for 1 or 2 days before things get annoying again. This has been going on since early March. Complaints get nowhere. The police don't care much about this kind of thing as it's a private road. I was staring out the window, noticing all the birds in my trees, which always come at this time of year. Then I got an idea. My property front is lined with 3 massive trees with their branches hanging well over the street. It provides great shade in the hotter months. But how to get more birds into my trees? I'm not a bird person, but motivation and Google can get you quite far in life, and so I learned exactly what birds are around right now and how to best lure them. Then I went and bought tons of bird feeding things, boatloads of them, and stuff to get them safely into the trees. I had around 100 of them up in those trees, and it took me the whole day on Friday. On Saturday, I was out, but on Sunday, I noticed more birds than usual. But as there are usually many birds chirping in late March, I couldn't be sure. But Monday was filled with a cacophony of biblical proportions, and the trucks returned and parked in their usual antisocial spots somewhere around 8 a.m. The trees filled up with birds around 9 to 10 a.m. and started gorging themselves on the now insane amounts of food. I was in my kitchen watching as the guys came to their trucks for lunch at 1 p.m. I heard their swearing clearly through closed windows. I had a peek, and their trucks were absolutely covered in bird goop. I literally, really mean absolutely covered. The hood, roof, the bed, any equipment in the bed, the windshield, mirrors, door handles, everything was covered in bird feces. Lots of it. It was horrifically awesome. It took them an hour to clean enough of it off just so they could drive, as you couldn't clear the windows using the wipers. It's Wednesday today and their trucks are now parked far away. Driving past, you can clearly see that there are still signs of Monday's carnage on them. But apart from some nasty looks, no one has said a word. Not one word. It's petty, but it made me feel very satisfied. In the comments, Kabird said, "Who knew Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds was actually a guide to dealing with annoying contractors? Sounds like Operation Poop Party was a soaring success." Arrow 777 said, "So, how did you keep the squirrels from ravaging 100 or so bird feeders?" Arokthis added, "It takes a couple of days for news of a new food source to percolate through the squirrel population. Birds will know within hours. As Albert Einstein said, "Look deep into nature and you will understand everything." OP didn't have to go very deep to get nature to teach these contractors where to go. That's right, guys. Up the street will do just fine. Mind your step, though. There's bird goop everywhere. Not so lucky when it's raining down on your trucks and tools, eh? Our second story is a bit late in the season as winter has melted away, but that won't stop this story from warming up your giggle box. An intrepid entrepreneur has a problem with some rule-breaking customers. Undeterred, he aims to shame with a devious scheme that left, pun intended, some sticky-fingered renters, the laughingstocks of the slopes. Story 2. I work at a small ski and snowboard shop, and one of the services we offer is a seasonal lease program. For those of you unaware, ski and board equipment can be very expensive, and that means sometimes the sport prices itself out of the picture for some people. We're really proud that we can offer a full package to be taken home and used as many or as little times as the customer would like, all for less than the price of buying just a pair of ski boots. This program does come with some caveats. One of them is that the tip of every ski we rent out has a 3-inch by 3-inch sticker with our logo on it. The sticker does double duty by both giving us some free advertising and declaring ownership if the skis get left behind at a resort. At the end of the season, we get a bunch of phone calls from mountains saying, "We've got your skis, come get them." As a result, it's really important to us that customers keep our stickers on the skis. Sometimes, however, customers don't want to look like they're on rental equipment in front of their friends. This is specifically a problem in high school and college-age humans. Often they will attempt to remove our stickers. However, the ones we use are very heavy-duty and removal of them usually entails chisels and a good amount of time. That said, every year there are close to 100 pair of skis that someone puts that effort into. We've tried everything over the years to entice people to leave the stickers alone, from fees to rewards to a Spot the Sticker giveaway program. This year, though, I may have cracked the code. Underneath the stickers this year, I stenciled the word left. I labeled 6,000 skis, 3,000 pairs, left, and 0 skis, right. Now, most skis no longer have left and rights, so the word has no bearing on performance. It's there purely to frustrate sticker removers. All season, I've been enjoying customers coming in complaining of having 2 left skis. I smugly smile and say, "Our rental skis don't have left and right. We just write that on the tips to catch people who remove the stickers." But yesterday, my plan exceeded my wildest hopes. I had a customer come in to return his equipment, and he informed me that he removed the stickers back in December and almost instantly regretted it. He had spent every chairlift ride for the duration of the winter explaining to total strangers that he knows both his skis say left. And no, he doesn't have 2 left feet. And yes, he's horrible at dancing, but not because of that. In addition, he was in a seasonal instructed ski group with his fiancée, some friends and coworkers. Apparently, after day 1 of an 8-week program, his group's assigned instructor nicknamed him Lefty. His fiancée started calling him Lefty, as did his coworkers. Upon returning to work, the story was told to his boss, and it's now how everyone at his job distinguishes him from the other employee he works with, who shares the same first name. In the comments, Treebeard said, "After you explain, do you hand them 2 new stickers so they can cover up the lefts?" OP replied, "Of course. My goal is to keep stickers on skis. I happily give out fresh ones, even if the existing ones are still there and they just want stickers." Slacking at my job said, "This scheme was the old school definition of sinister." Life on a Gantt chart added, "Now that's the pun I can appreciate." Sounds like that nickname really stuck. Cheesy, I know. What a brilliant idea on the part of OP. Not only do you get the outcome you want, but the reactions would be priceless. Imagine all of these indignant people coming in to complain about getting poor service, and then the color flushes from their face and they go bright red. Well, never mind. Be amazing. Our third story continues on the winter trend and the parking nightmare it creates around the world when it becomes blanketed in a dusting of snow, covering each and every thing. Insert a man into the situation, then a car, then a righteous fire to melt away snow, but not before he gets a parking ticket. Fueled by the indignity, he parks himself in front of City Hall and fights for justice. But will he succeed in dropping the fine and instead give the city the boot? Story 3. The ticket. This was mid to late 90s in a northern Midwest mid-sized city. Parking near my apartment near a university was only on-street parking. Bad in the best of times, it got miserable in winter with alternate side parking eliminating half the parking on major streets such as where my apartment was. Failing to find any parking some nights, I would risk it. Sometimes I got a ticket, sometimes not, but at least I typically knew why I got the ticket. Until one morning. I was cited for violation number 27. I had no idea what that was all about. It wasn't an alternate side violation, not an expired meter issue, not a loading zone thing. I just didn't know what it was. What did I do wrong? I went by the office to pay the ticket and I asked the clerk, by the way, what is violation number 27? I don't know and don't want to get ticketed for whatever it is again. Her reply set me off. We don't have to tell you. Excuse me? I took my check out of her hand and picked up my ticket. It was the 90s. I told you it was a long time ago. We used to write out little slips of paper called checks that the recipient could take to the bank and deposit. Half you kids reading Reddit have probably never written a check. I'm old. Sue me. Now get off my lawn. I asked her who could tell me. She shrugged. Maybe the prosecutor's office? She replied. I left, ticket unpaid. I stopped by the prosecutor's office, ticket in hand, to ask. I apologized to the receptionist for such a ridiculous waste of time. I just wanted to know. And she rolled her eyes at me. I got nowhere there. Digging in my heels, doing legal research, for a poor recent college grad, I certainly wasn't going to waste my money with a lawyer, but was hard-headed enough to want to know what violation number 27 was before I paid it. I resolved to go to the public library and pull out the law books with the city ordinances and state statutes. Library, a physical building with actual printed books where people used to have to go to look up information before everything was online. I'm old, I told you, and stay off my lawn. I settled in, flipped through pages, cross-referenced ordinances and statutes, and found something interesting. Possibly it was very interesting. I checked the court date on the ticket and made up my mind. I would dang well fight City Hall. Court time. I showed up in court. Some paperwork was handed out to those of us who were present. Just before it was to be my turn, the prosecutor graciously offered to let me pay the ticket plus court costs to make this go away. It is just a parking ticket. I'm already here. Why bother? After waiting my turn, I stepped before the judge. The judge said a few things. The prosecutor said a few things. And then it was my turn. Your Honor, I move to dismiss the ticket based upon a due process violation on the 14th Amendment. I think the prosecutor might have gotten whiplash, her neck snapped so fast. I told my story. I just want to know what violation number 27 is. I looked. It's not in the law books, not in the city ordinances. I am being charged with something without being told what it is. And the judge smiled a bit, turned to the prosecutor and said, I've been waiting for someone to bring this up. The prosecutor's jaw dropped. Your Honor? I went on. State statute requires certain elements to be on any citation for it to be valid. Among those things is a citation to statute or ordinance. And there are a couple other issues with the ticket. It does not conform to the statutory requirements for a citation. The judge turned to me and asked if I had the ticket. Yes, ma'am, I do. And she asked if I had the paperwork that was handed out when I arrived in court. I did. And then the good judge took a few moments to walk us through that paperwork. She showed that neither the parking ticket nor the paperwork contained the requisite statutory elements for a citation or summons. Then the judge advised she would take the matter under advisement. The verdict. A few weeks later, I got a big manila envelope in the mail with the judge's order. In clearly written legalese, she went step by step through my argument, the requirements in statute and ordinance, and also the utter failure of the city to write a single valid parking ticket on their standard form in many years. Years ago, parking enforcement officers actually took a pen and physically wrote in ink on a 3-part pre-printed parking ticket form. Barbaric, I know. They didn't have handheld computers to print them out. This was just a few years after we figured out that banging 2 rocks can make a spark to start a fire. I told you, I'm old. And what did I tell you about staying off my lawn? She detailed that the city, to allow their parking enforcement officers to write tickets faster, use their own list of violation numbers. Expired meter is number 1. No parking zone is number 2. That did not correspond to any section numbers of the statute or ordinance. If you didn't have the list, you just might not know. and the judge threw out my parking ticket as a due process violation of the 14th Amendment. Oh, and that violation number 27 was parking too close to a handicap ramp. I didn't see it under the snow. My bad. Didn't matter. I had moved out of town by then. In the comments, and in response to, "I've been waiting for someone to bring this up," someone said, "Beautiful." Her Bold Princess added, "That judge was like a kid in a candy store that day." Gummy205 said, "Hello, I am modern young person. What is book?" Allison literally added, "First we read writing on scrolls, then we read writing on tablets, then we read writing on books. Now we just scroll through books on our tablets." Someone else said, "That many of the same 'I'm old' jokes in a 5-minute read was a bit painful." Phoenix Arising 13 replied, "He's old enough to be senile. Didn't realize he kept making the same joke." I thought it was cute. This story is magic. I love that OP was able to stick it to bylaw enforcement using an amendment, and he didn't have to pay a dime. And how hilarious that city staff created their own list that made tickets null and void. And now for a shameless plug for a Canadian movie. I have to warn you, it's not rated well on IMDb, but I love mockumentaries. So at least check out the trailer for The Delicate Art of Parking for a good laugh. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.